Delaney Jane, thanks for taking time to talk with us.
Hey, anytime. You guys are such huge supporters, and it means the world to me.
I hear that it is very beautiful where you are. Tell me, where are you in the world right now?
I'm in sunny Los Angeles. Finally made the move from Toronto to LA last February 4th, to be exact. Clearly before the chaos ensued. But then it was like, oh, what do I do? Do I stay? Do I go back home? And I knew that I was gonna be more or less miserable in Toronto. Although, love my friends and family. I couldn't live in the concrete cage anymore. So yeah, here I am a year later.
And did you move down with anyone? Like, did you know people in Los Angeles, or did you want to start fresh? Just you?
Over the past 5 years, I would say I've been living back and forth, traveling a lot, doing writing sessions, and kind of escaping winters to be in LA. So through the years, I've definitely developed a really great core friend group. Not only that, just so many people I love working with here. So it got to a point where LA actually started to feel more like home for me. I would land, get off the plane, I'm like, oh, I'm home. And then I'd go back to Toronto and I was like, like I couldn't, I'm not a big city girl. I'm just not, can't do it.
So does LA not feel like a city, or is it just the sunshine outweighs the city part? I've never been, so I don't know what it's like there.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say the only part of LA that feels like a big city is downtown LA, and it feels like Toronto. But the rest of it's so spread out. You don't look up and see skyscrapers, so you can always see the sun. Even when I'm driving, I remember driving in Toronto and I would get such bad anxiety just because other people, that like the energy in the city is everyone's in a rush. So very quickly, you could almost get an accident. And here, everyone's just kind of leisurely, and yeah, it doesn't have that same big city vibe. So
Okay.
I cherish it.
Nice. So I know that you are really busy working on some new music and a new album now, but I want to go back to how music started in your life. I know that your career started as a top liner, but how did it enter your life before that? Like, were you a kid? Were you writing songs as a 5-year-old? Tell me about it.
I love that question because I feel like so seldom these days do I actually go back to the beginning. And it started when I first started learning how to write. And I was writing poetry, really, really funny little quirky things. I know my mom has collected some from my past, but that's where it kind of started for me, writing poetry. Always loved to write. I would journal a lot. Um, and I didn't have the perfect upbringing, the perfect childhood. My parents were split up when I was really young, in and out of their own various relationships, and there was a lot of turmoil at many points in my childhood. So writing became my my cathartic release. It was therapeutic for me. It was a way of expressing myself when I didn't know how else to express myself. And it wasn't until I was 13, yeah, 13, when my mom actually rented my brother an electric guitar and an amp. And when he was gone one day, I snuck in his room and I started playing. And I remember she poked her head in, and I thought I was going to get in trouble or something. And she's like, "Do you want guitar lessons?" It's like, yeah, I do. And then, next thing I know, she bought me an acoustic guitar, put me in singing lessons and guitar lessons. And finally, I was putting my poetry to music. And that just opened so many doors for me because up until that point, I just thought everybody journals, everybody writes poetry. I didn't think, anything of it. But I'll never forget the first day I was able to actually play through a whole song on my guitar and sing it all the way through. It changed my life. And from there, I just dove so much deeper into music. I joined every choir I could in high school. I ended up applying to and getting accepted to this private school for performing arts in Toronto. And from there, actually, is when I met Sean Frank, who many people know I've collaborated on pretty much all of my music on, whether it's a collab or just, him producing for me. But that connection then led me to do so much more and really enter the professional music world. But yeah, that's where it started.
Nice. Do you remember the feeling when you had your first like big song with a big artist?
Oh my gosh. Well, the first thing that came to mind, which I always feel like is, that's the one, if it, if your intuitive brings it up, was the first song that I sang on. It was the first EDM record I sang on that Sean and I wrote. It was called In My Hands. It is called, it still exists. The song still exists. In My Hands by Lush and Simon. And I'll never forget, I was at school, and my program was super intense, like 12-hour days. And Sean calls me like 5 times. So I leave to go to the bathroom. I call him back. I'm like, what's going on? It's like, In My Hand just got signed to Spinnin' Records. And at the time I was just like, okay, cool. What's Spinnin' Records? I was just so fresh in the industry. I didn't know anything about anything, but it was that first moment of wow, okay, the biggest dance label in the world has just signed this song, and that still to this day was probably the most pivotal point because it opened the door to so many collabs after that, which then led to my solo career. But that was a really special moment for me.
And that was a moment when you were still in high school.
I was in at that time. I was in post secondary. I was in the private school for performing arts.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was still a baby though, 19.
So in 2019, you released your solo album. You went on a tour across Canada. And then 2020, I noticed that you said that it was one of the most difficult and trying years of your life. And I mean, part of that had to do with moving permanently down to LA, maybe. But tell me about that and how maybe it's affected your music this year.
Yeah, wow. There are so many layers to that because the obvious COVID happening, um, many of us, including myself, being physically separated from our families and it being really difficult to visit one another. So I think I only saw my family twice last year, which is really difficult for me. I'm used to seeing my mom at least once a month. She's my angel. But besides that, one of the most difficult things was in me deciding to move to LA. It was also me deciding to finally end the relationship I was in. Um, and I mean, for anyone who knows me, Sean Frank and I ended up dating for the last 3 years of our relationship. We've been friends. Now we've been friends for 8 years, but before that, friends for 3 years and then dating for 3 years. And so that was the most insane transition of my life because not only was I moving countries away from my family, from everything I knew, from the home I built with him and the life we'd made together, but also leaving my best friend in the whole world. And there were so many question marks floating around all the time. But I don't know if you've ever had that feeling in your heart and your soul, like something isn't right. It's not that there's something wrong here, but just something's not right. And I had to follow my intuition. And turns out, everything does happen for a reason. And it was really meant to be the way it is now. But the heartache, the tears, the uncertainties, the doubt that I went through for the first couple months were easily one of the most difficult times of my life. But yeah, here I am now on the other side, which is in a place where I knew I wanted to get to and be in my life where I'm just so sure of, where I am, who I am, and who I'm with. So yeah, made it.
Um, when you were in those moments, did songwriting help you? Was it therapy at all for you? How does it affect your songwriting to be going through something like that?
Oh my gosh. Again, it brings you back to when I was a kid writing, my thoughts and feelings just to get through. And it's one of those things that I just carry with me forever. It'll always be my go-to um, therapy form of expression. And there were a lot of tears that I cried on my piano, a lot of really difficult nights where I was trying to, you know, be creative, but all I could write was heartbroken poetry, and a lot of really beautiful poetry came out of it. Some probably of my best songs have come out of it, and one in particular that I would say is my favorite, my absolute favorite on this upcoming album, because it is the story of Sean and I. And the craziest thing about this song is that we wrote it together. And it's just, it's such a beautiful ode to our friendship, our, you know, unconditional love as creators, as friends. And I think, you know, so many of my fans know us together, the music we've made together. And I think when they hear it, it's just going to like rip their heart apart and pull it back together in the best way possible.
What's the song called?
It's called Lovesick Lullaby.
Okay. So at the end of 2020, you did release an EP called Somewhere Else, and on there is the song that we are loving right now just as much, with Virginia to Vegas. Tell me about that song.
That song, so I wrote that song at a songwriting camp in Dubai just over a year ago. And as soon as I wrote it, I knew that I was in love with it. And it was all about finding the perfect, you know, partner to duet this with. And I remember Derek and I meeting a couple years back at the SoCan Awards, and you know, in passing, in between wine, we're like, we should do a song together. But then we never ended up doing one together. And I'm such a big fan of his voice, his music. You know, he has such a personality on Canadian radio. And you know, when this opportunity came up, I just figured, I was like, you know, I should ask him, see if he likes the song. I sent it to him. He's like, I absolutely love this, which I was like, you know, I had a good feeling about it. And then, yeah, it happened really quickly, really seamlessly. We both just, you know, were vibing together and wanted to do a record together for so long. But yeah, I'm so excited.
Did you work together in LA, or was it remotely because of COVID?
It was completely remotely. So I actually used a lot of the original demo recording from the Dubai camp, because even after I re-sang the vocal, I was like, there's something about this first take that just, it was probably because I sang it on the last day of the camp and my voice was kind of raspy, but I'm like, I love that. I loved it. So we used a lot of the original demo. And then, yeah, Derek actually came to Sean's Toronto studio and they sang his parts. So it was all done remotely, which is pretty much what my life was, making music last year and kind of still this year. Yeah.
So tell me about Songwriters Camp, because a few people have brought that up, and I'm wondering, is that kind of a regular thing that people do, and what is it like? What do you do at a Songwriters Camp?
Well, first of all, songwriting camps are usually the best weeks of my life. I love them. I always tell people they're like camps for adult musicians. You know, like it's like summer camp for adult musicians. It's not something that you can sign up for or apply to. I've had a lot of you know, fellow musicians ask me that. It's one of those things that you have to either know someone, be invited, or maybe you're brought in through your publishing you know, group, depending on if you're published. But most of them that I've done, you fly to a place, you stay in either a villa, an apartment shared with other people, some kind of accommodation, and then every morning you come have breakfast together. You are told which groups you're in for the day, and then 11 a.m. you go and you write. You have 2:30 lunch where we all meet up again, eat, go back, write, finish the song, and then for most of the camps, we have playback every night, which is at the end of the day. We all get together in a living room with some bomb speakers and we play all the songs from the day. And it's just the energy in the room at that point in the day is so amazing because everyone's exhausted, you know, mentally drained, but then we get to feed off of each other and hear what we all made. And it's usually pretty hyped and there's usually wine involved. So you can imagine it gets a little rowdy, but it's yeah, and we do that usually five or 6 days straight with one day off in between where I don't know why most camps I've gone to, we have a boating day, which is amazing, but it's like a day off on a yacht.
Nice.
It's great. Yeah, it's amazing.
Scrolling through your Instagram, if I just scroll through, it looks very much like a beautiful girl who has everything, gorgeous boyfriend, happy, sunshine, right? And then when I look deeper in, I noticed some of your posts where you're talking about, well, you like to every so often say, hey, by the way, remember that social media is fake and it's not reality. And you talk about some of the struggles that you've gone through with your mental health and everything. What is your relationship with social media? Is it a love-hate relationship for you, or how do you feel about that? Because I'm guessing you have to have it as a musician.
Yeah, I would say you're 100% spot on. It's definitely a love-hate relationship. It's one of those things that, not only my close team is telling me, it's just something you have to be honest, it's part of business, but anyone in the business. So I will take I took most of the weekend to be off of it, and I will take time off of it. I'm trying more to enjoy it than see it as like a numbers game, because I know people can get totally lost in that. And I also will catch myself if I ever am going down the rabbit hole of, looking at people's pages and comparing myself to maybe where I am and where I want to be. It can quickly suck you into a bad place. So, self-awareness is key. I don't know. I'm trying to have fun with it. I'm trying to make it just a work of art, just like my music, and something I can have fun with and not take too seriously.
Yeah. Well, when do you expect to have your new album out? Do you have a date in mind, or?
Ooh, I do not have a date in mind. We are taking our time just because for this body of work, I really want to have everything finished before, and I'm being a little neurotic about it, but I feel strongly about it, just having all my visual assets, my videos done, everything before we start releasing. So I'm hoping that it will be out this year, but if not, the entire body of work will definitely start rolling out some of the album this year. But yeah, I just want it to be perfect.
Well, we're looking forward to it. We were loving just as much on KOOL FM, and thanks for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. Honestly, it means the world. I wish I could be in Canada right now to hear it, but I always have my friends and family sending me videos of them hearing it on the radio. So it means a lot.